Welcome to this special live stream broadcast from Northern Iceland. Here we are working with NatureEye once again to look at the beautiful geology of this area. We have Johan as our drone pilot along for the ride. And so we're going to fly up to the north. Let me make sure things are working okay. And if folks can let me know if they can hear us okay, that would be great. So we are in North Iceland again with NatureEye, and I'm flying the drone along with Johan, the drone pilot, who's on the ground. And this is Kverfjall. You might recognize this large volcano because I just did a video on this not too long ago, posted about a week or so ago. And this is an area I have visited, but I'm not an expert in. And so we'll rely a little bit on Johan to help us with some of the interpretation as well, because he's done many flights in this area. This is his home turf. And so he's able to provide just as much good information as I could. So, but this is a tough cone. So this was a volcano that erupted beneath Lake Mivat about 2,700 years ago. And it reacted explosively, the magma and the water. And so that created a big explosive pile of pyroclastic material that accumulated and built this impressive cone we can see here straight in front of us. So pretty awesome. So I'm excited that we have this lull in activity on the Reykjanes Peninsula where we can go explore some other areas of Iceland, because there's a lot more to Iceland than just that little area there. There's the parking area. So that's where I parked a few months ago. And then there's a trail from that parking area that goes up to the rim there. So I'll go ahead and bring Johan on and make sure you guys can hear him, and he can provide a little bit of the commentary here as well. Go ahead, Johan. Are you there? Well, presumably he's there. So there's a whole series of these volcanic craters that form this part of the plate boundary in North Iceland. And this is just one of many, but we'll spend some time flying over this area, and then we'll head further. We'll do two flights, actually. We'll do our second one over the lake itself and look at some of the volcanic features there as well. Yeah, I can. No. Oh, hold on. Johan, hold on. They can't hear you for some reason. So is that something on my end? Yeah, and I'm not good with the restream thing. Um, let's see. Okay. Okay. Um, okay, so apparently you guys can't hear Johan, which is unfortunate. And rather than try to futz with the audio, let's just continue this as best we can, and I'll just relay some of the good information he has. So one of the things you can do on the NatureEye flight here is they can pre-select certain points of interest, and so this one's going to take us right over this fracture set or this fault zone, the Grutia Rift. And so I've just selected that here in the upper left. Is that close enough? Guta Yao. Okay, means Rocky Canyon, says Johan. Um, yeah, so then the nice thing is you can fly the drone on your own, but then you can also just, have it take you directly to whatever it is of interest you want to go to, and then it will fly right there instead of having to kind of navigate around a bit on your own. So you can see Lake Mivat there um, to the west, and some of those summer homes, or do some people live there year round, Johan? Okay. Yeah, so there's some guest houses there, some restaurants there, along with some of the homes. Now we're looking back to the north here, and you can see that fracture, that fissure now that we're following as we move off to the north. Remember, on the Reykjanes Peninsula, the plate boundary runs southwest northeast, but here in North Iceland, it runs almost due north south, and so you see a lot of the volcanic fissures aligned in that direction. You see a lot of the faults and fractures associated with the plate motion uh, aligned with that in that direction as well. Right. So we're Go ahead. Yeah, so we're right over the plate boundary, but again, like I've shown in my videos, it's not quite as simple as just one single crack or feature, but this would be one of the dominant or major features that defines the plate boundary in North Iceland. Yep, this is the Guthia Cave. They filmed an episode of Game of Thrones here, so it's become kind of a fan favorite for people that come to the parking lot here. And there's some little entrances that get you into the cave where the spring is. Real pretty blue water. You can see some of the people there. We just kind of flew past, and then the rest of the rift and the fracture system heading off this way. So if you come into Hverfjall, this is right off the road to go to this little cave in this fissure system here. You see some of the geothermal features there in the distance. Oh, okay, great. Um, Perfect. So where should we head next, Johan? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so you can see some of the geothermal features there in the distance. Um, Let the camera kind of focus a little bit. There you go. And we'll just maybe spin around a bit and do a little bit of a 360 view. And then we'll go to the next point. So now we're looking back to the south at Kverfjall. Um, and then in the far distance are some of the big subglacial volcanoes, the Tuyas that would have formed. Um, Bring the camera back up. Oh, that was me. That was my fault. Over the past, during the last glacial advances and maximums. Hmm. Oh, okay. Right. So we have, yeah, two subglacial volcanoes right there. Whoops, I keep pushing the wrong button. Sorry. Bring the camera back down. You can tell it's me doing it. And let's keep spinning around one last time, and then we'll look over towards the lake, and then we'll head to the next point there. And so when we had some of these eruptions in the last few thousand years, with the lake already here, um, the these lava flows poured into the shallow lake, or just these marshy lands that were there. And so we ended up, you can see some of these sitting out in the lake, these small little cones that are called, oh, did I do the wrong one? Oh, okay, I got you. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I got the wrong. Pushed the wrong point of interest there. So you can see in the flats here around the lake, there's quite a bit of a low relief topography, and you'll occasionally see these small little cones, these little mounds that look like, I suppose like really large ant hills that are in the landscape here. And I did a video on these as well in a different part of North Iceland, but they're the same features. Are these things called either pseudo craters or rootless cones, where you had lava flows advancing into these very wet areas, either occupied by standing water or just marshlands, like very like wetlands. Um, and with all that water available as the lava poured over it, that water then flashed to steam, became expansive, and you had these very small, localized, uh, basically like lava eruptions of bubbles popping, if you will, but small explosive eruptions. But they weren't really tied to an actual vent or a subsurface magma plumbing system. And so these are these things, again, we call pseudocratos, rootless cones, rootless vents. And that's what forms a lot of this topography you see just off in the distance in the middle ground there with these kind of the lumpy, bumpy ground. They form a lot of the islands that sit out in the lake, which we'll probably get a good look at on our second flight as well. Anything else there, Johan, I can point out? Hmm. Yeah, so Johan's pointing out the lava flows in on the valley floor here are younger than Kverfjall. They're about 1,000 years old, and you can see some of the, these are mainly lavas, but you can see some of the banding and ridges, some of the flow features within those lava flows. Now we're looking at the west ridge. Okay, another. Right. So he's going to take us up. We're going to go up and do a little loop around Kverfjall along the rim. You can see the hiking trail that comes up there. Okay. Oh, so I can control the camera. Great. Okay. Right. So the nice thing with the NatureEye technology is, even if you're on like a kind of an automated flight like I am now, you can still use the camera and get pictures as you want to. You can just tap the space bar and take a photo, and then these all get uploaded later on. Of course, NatureEye has a couple of other destinations besides Iceland. So if you're interested in doing this for yourself or family friend, maybe a gift idea, you can use the code Sean Fly. So my name and then FLY. That'll get you 10% off your flight. So something to think about there. So we're going to fly over to the far end of Kverfjall and look at another hydrovolcanic or phreatomagmatic volcano, sort of a twin sister, I suppose, of this volcano that lies just to the east. Beautiful lighting for the lake there. Yeah, I see it. Yep. So Luden, is that how you say that? Luden? Ludent. Okay, so that's that crater we have straight in front of us there. How do you spell that? Oh, that's easy. Ludent. Yeah, Ludent. And so those formed at about the same time underneath the lake. Oh, okay, that's a different system. Okay, that one's about 9,000-year-old team, that crater we're looking at now. Yeah, spatter cones. Yep. Okay. 2,000-year-old spatter cone row coming off the south end of that, right? Okay. So these lava flows went all the way from this area around the lake, flowed down a valley to the north and into the sea near Husavik, which is pretty incredible. And that would have been the same lava flow that I did my video on with the rootless cones along the highway there. Perfect. You can see some of the cones out in the lake there pretty nicely. We'll see those a little better on our second flight. Now we're spinning back to the north. What's the cone-shaped peak just to the north called? And what's the story on that, Johan? Do you know anything about that one? Okay, much older. Hmm. Okay. So there's the rim trail around Krefjalt, and there's a little secondary little dome crater inside the bigger crater there. Yep. Parking area. You can see another small little crater just beyond the parking area there, down in this yellow grass. And then a beautiful another crater row off to the north. You can see a little bit of a highway over there as well. And then a lot of this really red, yellow, some of that landscape we saw to the north, that's just some very hydrothermally altered soils. There's some geothermal areas over there. And so the soils are quite colorful because of the sulfuric gases that have gone through those. Another view back to the south. Some of the rootless cones right there in this topography. Or is that mostly the lava? There's some rootless cones in there, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Ah, so these are in the Icelandic folklore, this is the trolls and elves that um, got caught out in the daylight and turned to stone. That's where a lot of the mythology comes from, is this kind of landscape and topography. And then, right. Okay. So this part of the valley's been built up by these volcanic eruptions and has shifted the lake over to the west a little bit because now it's higher than the topography. That's fair? But the lake used to be here, yeah. Okay. So we'll fly back and get a battery change here, and then we'll do another flight out over the lake here. But there's some more of those little rootless cones from this 1,000-year-old lava field. Pretty impressive that I mean, from here to the ocean at Husavik's a good 60 kilometers, maybe something like that. Yeah, that's pretty impressive that it was able to flow that far. So we'll do one more flight here, team, in a second once we get a quick battery change over a different area. And then remember, after we do our awesome flight here with NatureEye, we'll do some other stuff here on the live stream. We'll do an update on some of the things going on the Reykjanes Peninsula. Have some data to share with you, some news items, and then some announcements with respect to the channel. So make sure you stick around for a little bit after we do this next little 25 or so minute flight. We'll let Johan bring this one in for landing, and then we'll we'll head out over the lake and look at some of the volcanic features out there. So we'll let Johan switch the battery out. But this is a good time also to mention some of the other places that NatureEye has drone flights in. There's ones in South America, Machu Picchu area. There's several in Africa you can do. I believe there's one in Washington. So a good thing to do is just go to their website, check out the different locations that they have as offerings. And of course, there's two in Iceland. There's this area of northern Iceland, and then the volcanically active area we've been focusing on the last few months on the Reykjanes Peninsula. So there's a couple of flight options there as well. But it's pretty simple. I mean, you're just pushing buttons on the keyboard. You guys can see a lot of the controls there when you're looking at my screen. Pretty straightforward. And then, of course, you can take the photos as well. So we'll get the battery changed out, and then we'll take off again. And next time we'll try to figure out what the audio was doing here, because we have had this work in the past where you can hear both of us, but I'm not quite sure what the issue is this time. Yeah, I can see, but it shows battery still low. Okay, so go ahead and take off. We're good to go. No, it still shows it down in the orange level. So, yep, no problem. So hang in there, folks, and we'll do this second flight out over the lake. Great time of day to be doing it with the sun kind of low in the sky. It's green now. Looks good now, Johan. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take off then. So here we go. Up, up, and away. And we'll spin around towards the lake this time as we go up. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we want to swing a little bit to the southwest here. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna fly out to the southwest here a bit, and yeah, kind of go in this direction here. You can see some of these nice craters out on the island. Johan was telling me earlier, this was kind of a fun fact, and maybe he can elaborate a little more, and I can relay this to you. But some of the local farmers take their sheep out onto these islands and just drop them off and let them graze out there for the season. Plenty of grass. They've got water. Pretty much all they need, I suppose. Oh boy, pressure's on. Well, you have the controller. It is a little bit easier to do with the controls than the keyboard for sure. So, yep, yep. Okay, we'll head over to that one first. Um, it's stopping a little bit on me. Let's see. Oh, now it's going. And then we want to get the camera down a little bit. It shows us at 20 meters, but it feels like we're higher than that. Oh, okay. No, I'm fine. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So you can see in that main crater there, there's a secondary crater nested inside of that one. Pretty interesting. So some of these bigger ones, um, I think they're a little too. Some of these are more like Querfjall than rootless cones. They're a little bit broader and looks like they're made out of more of the pyroclastic material. But the water's really pretty. Are there a lot of fish that live in the lake? Okay, trout in the lake. Yeah, the lighting's just great for these. Oh wow, that's perfect. So yeah, a couple of these small volcanic craters on this little island, and you can see some on the right side have been sort of uh, partially bisected. They've been eroded away. They're not completely whole. So now we're kind of swinging around to the southeast side of the island, or southwest side, I guess. Yeah, it does look like a golf course with the little ponds down there. It really does. And those little ponds are just either little depressions, or some of those could be, their own little volcanic craters that have just they're deep enough that they intersect the groundwater, and you get a little bit of water in them. Because presumably a lot of this rock and this material would be very porous and permeable. So the only time you probably see water is when it's just deep enough that it's the same level as the lake. Oh yeah, there's a nice, like, perfect little kind of tough cone or cinder cone. And are there names for all of these islands? I'm imagining. Right. And are you allowed to, like, if people put kayaks in the lake, can you kayak out to the islands and walk around? Or are they protected, and is that prohibited? Oh, okay. 5 meters deep at its deepest, at the lake. But Johan says it's quite dangerous. Just with the wind and the waves, is that how it's dangerous? Oh, okay. So he says the bottom is like quicksand, and if you fell out of your boat and in shallow water tried to stand up, you could get stuck there. So, and there's hmm okay, tourists not allowed on the lake, Johan says, but some of the fishermen uh, in Iceland are allowed to go out there with special equipment. And oh, great view of the island there. So now we're swung around. We're looking to the north now. Okay. And does the lake have an outlet, or is it just, kind of, uh, an enclosed? Oh, okay, so he says there's a lot of inflow into the lake through the rock, like his springs at the south side. Okay, and then there's a river, that runs out the west side of the lake and drains to the ocean. Mhm, protected wetlands. Yeah, Johan wanted me to let you know that Lake Mývatn is one of the most important and protected areas in Iceland for waterfowl. Like, there's a lot of these wetlands and these ideal habitats for these types of birds to come in. And I imagine it's a lot of migratory birds that come up in the summertime and then fly back south in the winter. Yep. Boy, you can really just see straight through that water. It's very clear. And is the green, is that mostly grass or moss? I imagine that's a lot of moss on the islands. Okay. Yeah, mostly moss with some grassy areas in between. Were there ever any settlements out on some of these islands, like in older times? Not really, he says. Okay. Right. So just right, productive area for farming and fish. Now we're looking back to kind of like the southeast there. Yeah, there's Kverfjall and some of the cones over here by these homes. Yeah, the blue water and the green yellow land, that's just such a contrasting color. It's beautiful. And people live out in these homes year round, or are these mostly summer homes? Maybe you answered that and I forgot. Sorry. Mostly farms. Oh, yeah. Lots of okay, mostly tourism. Yep. Well, it looks like yeah, it's showing like 120 meters, which I guess feels about right. Okay. And it looks like a lot of the snow's melted off the highlands versus when I was there in May. They were just confused. Hmm. We're gonna head around to the kind of the southeast side of Kverfjall and check out the other crater. Is that right? I think I was, but No, but go ahead. Okay. What's the big I don't think you can see it from here, but out by Askia, there's the big, classic tuya called, Herðverdi, or it's like the Queen Mountain, or it's what's Herðabreit. Yes, that's but you can't see that from here, correct? Okay. Right. Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, let's do one there. Johan, basically just volunteered to take the drone up to Askia, and we could do another live stream up there. That would be awesome. Yeah. Yes. It's a caldera. It's so big, it's a caldera, right? Do I wanna swing a little bit more to the in this direction here? Is that good? Okay. Okay, yep, right. Um, yeah, I'll look down at some of these here. Get a couple pictures of some of these rootless cones here. And zoom back out. So there's zoom feature on the camera that works pretty nicely. So you don't have to move the drone up and down too much. And yeah, so the other cool thing that Johan's keyed me in on is like, let's say, for example, I want to, there's kind of these little three pillars off to the left, little left to center. If I just double click on that, it swings around and centers that part on the frame. And then if I switch to my zoom, then it goes right into where I'm looking at. So that's a nice feature there. Um, and in general, I found the optics, the camera is just really good. If anything, sometimes I don't do a good job. I got to wait for it to kind of settle a bit, um, but then it works really nicely. So there's a nice view of Kviarfi out from the south side. Okay, yeah, you can take over here and okay, so Johan's playing here. Oh, that's awesome. I can't remember my numbers. The diameter of that something, it's close to a kilometer across, isn't it? It's very large. That's about a blue sky day in Iceland as you get. 23 degrees, he says. Yeah. Yeah. Except no one has air conditioning. Just open the windows and hope for the best. So we'll take one last look at the landscape here before we go in and land the drone here, folks. Nice view to the southwest, or excuse me, that's the northwest. The lake out there in the distance, Akureyri is the biggest city in northern Iceland. About an hour drive away, Johan, would you say? Okay. Yeah. 90 kilometers, about an hour, he says. Great. Well, this has been just a real treat. So, want to just say thanks to NatureEye and especially Johan for making this happen, for getting out there for us and getting everything in place so we could all experience this together. We've got people watching this from literally around the world, Australia, the northern and southern hemisphere, the eastern and western hemisphere, people from all over that have been able to enjoy this nice little flight over northern Iceland and see some of the interesting landscapes here. So remember, you can check out their website, natureye.com. You can use my code ShawnFly, ShawnFly, and that'll give you 10% off a flight that you might want to take, or maybe you want to gift this to someone who will enjoy it. It's a great way to use technology to experience new places, new landscapes from the comfort of your own home and computer. So we'll just bring it in for landing here. But yeah, thanks so much, Johan, for your time this evening. We really appreciate it. Getting dusted out by those cars every time they go by. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Take care, Johan. Okay. Yep. He says thank you to all and greetings. All right. Take care, buddy. We'll see you next time. Okay. Goodbye. All right. Um, Great. So presumably we are back with just me here. Hello. Thanks again for being part of this. We're going to do a little bit more here. So hopefully you're not too exhausted from the drone flight. That was pretty cool for me. That was my first time doing the drone flight over that area with NatureEye, and that was just really special. Just super fun to be a part of that. So we'll go ahead and continue on with the live stream, and it's a little tricky for me to watch the live chat at the same time. Remember, we have our moderators on there. It looks like we have Mandy Joe, and Susan is there as well. So we have a couple of folks that are there. If you want to submit questions for me to answer at the end of the live stream, they have directions on how to do that. So that's sort of the end of, I guess, part one of our live stream today. Part two, I'm going to do a few announcements for just the community, our channel at large, just some things going on. Then we'll get to the Iceland update, go over some of the latest data, some of the things that I'm seeing, look at that together. And then we will, let's see, I got to do one other thing here. Let's see. Sorry, team. I'm just trying to get the display up the way I want it. Anyway, we'll do some announcements. Yeah, the Iceland update, and then we'll get to the viewer Q&A. This is still not showing it the way I want to. That's okay. We'll just leave it like this. Okay, so let's start with some announcements. And let me first show you, make sure I don't pull the microphone out, a very cool piece of artwork that one of our viewers sent to me that he'd put together. So this is from Kirk Phillips. Hopefully you guys can see that. Maybe I'll go ahead and just make it nice and big there. So this is just a beautiful piece of art that a viewer, Kirk Phillips, again, put together. So I want to give him some props. I've already thanked him privately, but I'm going to go ahead and thank him publicly now. These are all different types of woods. And if you can't tell, this is actually a depiction of the grand staircase in southern Utah, northern Arizona, the Colorado Plateau region. So starting, at the bottom of the Grand Canyon with the Vishnu schist and the Zoroaster granite, the Grand Canyon supergroup, the Tapete sandstone, all the different layers in the Grand Canyon, then going up through the rest of the grand staircase, the rocks you see at Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon National Park. So this is just a beautiful piece of artwork. I'm super excited that someone has the talent to make this, because I surely couldn't. I'm going to hang it up at some point. For right now, I'm just going to kind of put it back there for now. But thanks to him for doing that. Super awesome. And let's go back to the screens now. And then the other fun things, these are just fun little announcements I thought folks might be interested in. I was asked by this year, some of you may or may not know, is the centennial anniversary of Craters of the Moon National Monument. It's been established, it was established in 1924. So this is the 100-year anniversary of that area being designated a national monument. And I was honored to be asked to write an article in the Idaho Statesman, which is a big newspaper here in Idaho. I think it's going to be in some other newspapers as well, but it just came out this past Sunday, and let me see, I got to switch. This is so wonky the way this one works out. Okay, so here is the article. I'll make sure there's a link to it. So I was asked to write an article about just showcasing a little bit about the geology at Craters of the Moon. And so, yeah, so a little article I wrote. You can read it. I'll put the link in the description here once we get done with the live stream, and that will be available to you if you'd like to take a look at that. So that's kind of a fun little thing that's been going on. And then related to that, let me just stay, since I'm already on that screen, let me just stay with this. Related to that is another announcement about a presentation I have coming up this Sunday. I know a lot of you are, if not out of the area, then you're not even on the continent, and that's fine. I will try to make sure this presentation gets recorded at a minimum. I don't think they'll be able to live stream it, and I don't want to stress out the folks that are hosting this, but this was an invited presentation from the Idaho Museum of Mining and Geology. They've asked me to do something on the things that have been going on in Iceland. So it'll be somewhat similar to the presentation I did a few weeks or a month or two ago for the Icelandic League of the United States, just kind of summarizing some of the things that have been going on in Iceland over the past I guess 8 or 9 months. And so there's my fun title, Shaken and Bacon, Recent Volcanic Unrest in Iceland. You do need to, if you're going to come to this, it's on Sunday, July 21st from 1 to 2 o'clock local time, Mountain Daylight Time. It's in downtown Boise at the old penitentiary, which is kind of a cool, fun, historic building made out of a locally derived sandstone. But it's a nice big venue, seats 200 people. They have air conditioning. I'll be there. If you want to meet me, I'll sign books, and I'll have books available for those that want to get those as well. So anyway, so that's just another fun announcement of things that are going on. Very cool. And then the next thing I have, I guess I do need to switch screens again for this one and go to the next thing I have for you is there is two more interviews coming up soon. So I have got this one confirmed. Robin Hendrick is the physical scientist at Zion National Park. She's worked on some of the rockfall issues there, along with a lot of other things. I don't know her personally. She was just recommended to me by Greg Stock, who is the Yosemite National Park geologist, and I did a video with him maybe a month or so ago. And so she's agreed to come on, talk about how she got interested in geology, what she does with her career with the Park Service at Zion National Park. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's fun to meet new people, find out what they do, what their backgrounds are. And that's more or less the point of this interview series. So that's confirmed for late August. In fact, I think we actually have a date for it. It's the 26th of August, but I don't know that I'll get the video up that day. So, but sometime that last week in August, you can look for that video with Robin. And then I haven't got a date pinned down yet with Jeff or Jefferson. He's the Yellowstone National Park geologist, and we're going to do it for sure. We just haven't got the dates figured out. And his is a little trickier because you have to go through like their media relations team, and I imagine he has a lot of media demands and requests that he gets, and so that one's been a little bit trickier. So hopefully you can look forward to those though over the next couple months. And then my last set of announcements before we get to the Iceland update is I finally sat down with a calendar and figured out field trips. So here's what I'm looking at doing for field trips for YouTube viewers going into the fall. And I'm probably going to start with these in a backwards order, if that's okay. So November 8th and 9th, I will do two different day trips, one in the Snake River Canyon here around Twin Falls, and one just to the west of us in the Hagerman area. This is exactly the same trips I did last October and again this past April. So if you were already on those trips and thought that was a great experience, you probably don't need to do those again, but of course, if you want to, you can. And then October 11th, 12th, and 13th, there will be 3 trips. One day we'll go to Craters of the Moon, one out to City of Rocks, and I apologize for the error here. The other one will be to, I don't know, I guess I could put volcanoes north of Twin Falls. for lack of it's more of a series of locations rather than one specific location. This will be the same field trips that I just did this past June, last month. So this past June was the first time I ran this field trip. We had about 25 to 28 people that came out for those field trips. They went really well, despite the warm weather, but I'm going to repeat those. So these 2 field trips here are repeats of one I've offered in the past, but I'm going to continue to offer these until I guess no one signs up because everyone's done them or whatever's gone on there. And then the new field trip that I still need to figure out to some degree is September 27th, 28th, and 29th. So we'll do 3 different day trips in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. I've got some general ideas of where we're going to go, but I need to actually go down there on my own and go through all the field trip sites and think through, okay, I've got 25 people here. Do I have enough parking for 10 cars or however this is going to work? So I just need to kind of work through that a little bit with kind of a group mindset in order to make sure that will work well. But probably one of the days will be up Big Cottonwood Canyon, maybe going up over Guardsman's Pass towards Park City. One of the trips will be from Ogden over to Echo Junction, a transect through the severe orogeny and some of the deposits there. And then the third day, I haven't quite figured out, but I've got some ideas. So I'm not ready to take people's names just yet. I just want to put these out there as dates and locations for those that are interested. Amanda, Joe, and I will be working on getting the website, which is the next thing I wanted to quickly bring up. The website, hopefully we'll have this ready within a week or so, such that folks can sign up, pay for the field trips, and get all the information that they need. So the Salt Lake one might take, in terms of information, that's going to need probably a couple more weeks because I need to get down to that area, and that won't happen till the first week in August is when I'll be able to go down to Utah and figure that one out in a little bit more detail. So anyway, so you're hearing it here first. Right now, as of now, this is the only place where the field trips have been announced, but these will get added to the website over the next week or so, and there will be links and more information on how you can officially register and be signed up for those field trips. So in the interim, just let me know or Amanda, Joe know if you have any specific questions. And of course, this is the place to go where our website is, willseygeology.com. So and let us know how it looks. If you have recommendations or ways to make it more streamlined or whatever, that would be great. So okay, so that's it for the for the announcements. Let's go ahead and get to our Iceland update. Let me get to the right window here and grab my notes that I've prepared. Okay, so it's been a few days or maybe a week or so since I did an update. I guess I did one last week, maybe on Tuesday. So it's been about a week. So let's go ahead and start with our Met Office update. And there's a couple key things in here that I want to point out. I will usually I just kind of read this to you and explain it, but I've got a few points in here that I think are somewhat interesting. So let's just start with the big picture themes that we see in this Met Office update. And this is as of today. So this came out today, July 16th. Basically, the magma accumulation under the Svartsengi area has continued. It's been quite stable. And we are now getting to that lower threshold or that lower limit of the total magma volume that is believed to be necessary to trigger either an eruption or an intrusion event. And so we're right at about 13 million cubic meters of magma. That, based on what we've seen in the past, is the lower limit. It has gone as high as like 19 or 20 million cubic meters of magma. And there's a good chance it'll need to get close to that point before an eruption begins. And based on the inflow of magma into that storage zone, models suggest there's a high probability that that will take place in the next 3 weeks. So most likely in August sometime is when we're going to see that next event taking place. Continuing on with the update a little bit here, they talk about the model calculations, kind of the things we've talked about here. Here's a part I wanted to get to here. Yeah, assuming between 13 and 1 million cubic meters of magma would need to be added under Svartsengi to build up enough pressure to trigger a new magma flow and even an eruption. New models suggest that it would take place in the next 3 weeks. Okay, I mentioned that already. And what they've seen from experience looking at the Krafla fires in the 70s is over time, it took a little bit more pressure and volume in order to trigger that eruption. And so therefore, it's assumed that you might need to get to that 20 million cubic meters, which could take place again in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Here's the part that I found kind of interesting, though. And this is, so they did a new hazard assessment map here. Let me just read this sentence here. The latest analyses of how the location of the eruption has developed in the last volcanic eruptions in the Sunuk's crater series indicate that the eruption activity moves further south and closer to Grindavik with each event. Taking into account these analyses, and if it is taken into account that since November, the earthquakes have caused significant fissure movements within Grindavik, the risk assessment reflects an increased probability that lava will arise within zone 4, in other words, in the Grindavik area, in the next eruption. I thought that was really bold. I thought that was about as bold a proclamation from the Met Office as I've ever seen there. And they even put in on their new hazard map, they put Grindavik in the highest hazard zone, or in other words, zone 4. We'll let that load real quick. Interesting. So what they're saying is that they are stating that the location of the eruptions has steadily moved south with each eruption, and that coupled with the fact that the earthquake activity has produced all these fractures and faults in and around Grindavik, that justifies putting it into hazard zone 4. And also, I mean, as we just read with that update there, also that the eruptions are likely there. What was the exact wording there again? It was reflects an increased probability that lava will arise within zone 4 in the next eruption. I don't know that I totally agree with that, to be totally honest. I'm not saying that that's not the case. I just don't know that I would state that there's an increased probability that lava will arise within zone 4. And zone 4, if you look at the map, is pretty much Grindavik proper. I mean, it's south of Hagafelt. It's definitely in that zone. Let me switch over to Google Earth here. And and walk you through what that actually sort of looks like, and see if you agree with me, or maybe you feel like their statement is um, not that big a deal. So here we have the area around Grunendavik. Let me just kind of reset things a little bit for you there. And this is just my little Google Earth map, so take it with a grain of salt as you would. And so let's add in these eruptions as they've occurred. December 18th, there's more or less, I mean, remember, these are fissure events, so the location of my little volcano icon is not exactly where the volcano was, because they were fissures, and so it was a length and some distance of material, or distance that had the eruptive material coming out of it. So there's December, right, in this location, okay, further to the north. Here's January. So after January, I would have said exactly what they said. Okay, we moved from here to here. That's a clear southward progression. Um, after the January 14th eruption, could the next eruption have been right in Grindavik? I would have said the probability of that happening was indeed very high. But look what happened in February. Went back up here, right? So here's the area for February. You see the red lines there, almost right on top of and nearly identical to the December eruption. Here's the March 16th eruption, a little further south, but very parallel to and nearly on top of these December and the February eruptive event. And then here's our most recent one in May. And it's a little hard to see everything on top of each other there, but you can see the eruption location there. So has there been a steady progression to the south and towards Grindavik over time? I don't think so. I think the January one's definitely the anomaly, and we're only looking at 5 eruptions or 5 data points here. So could the next eruption be in Grindavik? Absolutely. I think that card is very much on the table. Do I feel like it's the most likely or increased probability? I don't know if I'd say that. I don't feel like the probability is increased over any of the eruptions that took place prior. Now that's just me, and that's one opinion. But take it for what it's worth. I'm just not seeing it. I still think the most likely place for the next eruption, which might take place this next month in August, is in this zone right here, where we've seen 4 of the 5 eruptions take place. I still feel like that's probably the most likely location, but could be further south, could be further north. Lots of possibilities there. So interesting. So I don't know. That was just my little bit of perspective on some of the things that have gone on there. So let's go back to our update here. So that's it pretty much for the Met Office update. Looking at the GPS data over the past few weeks, I guess it's been a week or so since my last update. We'll start with the Svartsengi station, and here you can see that upward trend. In places it gets a little bit steeper, but that clear upward trend, and we're pretty much right at or near the maximum elevation that was reached prior to the May 29th eruption. Now, we don't expect that to be the end of this trend, because in all the previous eruptions we've seen each successive eruption reach a higher elevation, or with each successive eruption we get a little bit higher elevations before that triggers an eruption. So I would expect that to continue, for there to be another few tens of millimeters or few centimeters of uplift before we get to some eruptive event. So we'll have to see how that goes moving forward. And yeah, all the other stations showing very similar trends. Here's the Eldvort station. Again, same sort of thing there. If we look at the most recent interferogram, which also measures ground deformation, we can see that's ongoing. This is for a period from June 16th to July 8th. So that shows some of the dramatic uplift in the ground right around, pretty much centered on an area just near the Svartsengi power plant there. So ground deformation continues. Earthquakes, we're not seeing a lot in the way of earthquakes, as to be expected. The rocks are still hot at depth. even though the magma is accumulating, it's accumulating into space that it probably already created. And we're probably not going to see much in this area when it comes to earthquakes until we actually get that magma moving in an appreciable way, either towards the surface or outward laterally through those subsurface rocks. That's when we'll see earthquake numbers and intensities increase. Same thing when we look at just like the last week or so, just not a lot going on around this area here. Whoops, what did I do there? I think I just updated it. Yeah, just wanted to zoom in a little bit on the peninsula. And you can see, the biggest thing going on the last week, there was a 1.4. Over here west of the Grindavik, there was a 1.5. Again, these are very small earthquakes, just a few of them, maybe a dozen or so. Nothing alarming, nothing indicative of something bigger going on. So let's go to, so one of our viewers, Bruce Garner, sent me some of his calculations. I know some of you have gotten a kick out of looking at those. So let's see if we can, let's just add those in here. So let me open up the email so I can read it as well. So he's been doing some just modeling and calculations with analyzing the data and then projecting out when the next eruption might be. So here he is taking 3 different GPS stations. This is time on the bottom axis here, so June 1st, July 1st, and then extrapolating and extending, forecasting out to August, September, and October. And here you can see this is the data. And then what he's doing here, I believe, is just taking sort of the trend. If you treat these as linear trends in terms of uplift, and then he's calculated based on the prior eruption events what that window of, how much uplift is going to be needed before we get some sort of eruption. And he's modeled that based on the previous eruptions and their behavior. And what we see here is that his window, depending on which sort of trend line you take from which station, you basically get something late August into early September as, being in that threshold or that window where an eruption is likely. So we'll see how accurate he is, but I think it's fun that he's been working on these and putting these together. Here's another one here that shows more of a longer term trend here. So going all the way back to October, of course, this sawtooth pattern with the purple and blue lines is the GPS elevation. This is just from the Svartsengi station. So each one of these downward deflections is a big eruption or an intrusion event. And then here he is modeling out when that might occur. And again, probably like mid-August to early September looks like the window that's most likely. So pretty interesting, but cool work done here by Bruce. So thanks, Bruce, for sending that along. Appreciate that. And then the last thing I have for you here before we get to our Q&A is some news items. So this was sent by Amanda Joe, and thanks to her for, as always, for sending me some of these news items and keeping me up to date on what's going on over there in Iceland. Obviously, it's hard from the States to really have your pulse on what's going on locally, but she lives there and so does a great job of sending me the news items. So this was an interesting article here. Basically, the Grindavik Committee, I guess like the town council, if you will, intends to start construction and repairs in Grindavik as soon as possible so that the town can be fully opened again despite the uncertain situation in the area. Now, I found this article very ironic, especially, and this is today, right? Especially given what the Met Office just said about Grindavik. Well, we're putting the town in zone 4. We think that there is an increased probability that lava will arise. That's the words they use there in zone 4. And just juxtaposing that against this article where they're going to start fixing the streets, the fractures in the ground, a lot of the damage that was done by the earthquakes, with the idea being that we can get this town, excuse me, back up and open as soon as possible. They presented the plan to the government, which welcomed the plans and agreed to make an effort to ensure security so residents can return there. And now residents, I think, as long as your home's not damaged, I think you can live there right now anyway. And Amanda Jo can certainly speak to that better than I can. It says it's important to start repairs as soon as possible, despite the uncertain situation in the area where land rise continues and another eruption is expected in the coming weeks or months. So I'm not judging this at all. Don't get me wrong. I just found it interesting that on one hand, your scientific agency put the town in a very high hazard zone and said there was an increased probability of lava erupting in and around the town. And at the same time, you're looking to maybe open up the town, getting the repairs done. So interesting. Project could take up to 6 to 9 months, but it's too early to say when people can stay in Grindavik. So I get the motivation and the desire to get the town up and running and back to normal as much as possible. But I feel like that's also tricky given the uncertainty that exists with what's going on beneath Svartsengi and the magma accumulation there. So, and then the last thing I have here, folks, is you might remember this. I actually found my update from March 15th of this year where I talked about this. So remember that back around mid-March, there was two scientists from Iceland that had modeled the first series of eruptions from December through, I guess, March or so, and they had projected that the magma accumulation out, and they had made the, again, fairly bold declaration that they felt like they had predicted the end of the upheaval in Grindavik in late summer. So they predicted that this volcanic system in this area north of Grindavik was going to be completely out of magma, for lack of a better word, by late summer. And I would argue we are getting into the second half of the summer, and we're looking at a possible eruption in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And so, not saying they're wrong, but it's not looking good in terms of that prediction. Let's see, what else do we have here? And again, they were taking very limited data, and that was my contention all along, was that I wouldn't be comfortable taking a few data points and then extrapolating out in a very dynamic volcanic system the way they did. But that's what they did nonetheless. And that was based on a linear trend, and they predicted that the end of the event would be between July 1st and August 15th. So today is July 16th. They've got another month to see if that prediction holds true. But I thought it was just fun to maybe circle back and just bring that up, because we're very quick as society and as humans to move on to the next thing and not remember what was stated a week ago, a month ago, 3 months ago, or whatever. So, but it was actually pretty fun to go back through that update that I did on March 15th. And I guess here's what I was talking about here. So here's my update on March 15th, and just kind of going through all the data here, looking at the trends way back then. And then I ended up getting eventually to this prediction that was in the news at that time. So, yeah, good stuff. So anyway, let's see where we're at here. So I think that's all I have for you for a update for Iceland. Let's see. Let's switch over now to let me switch screens here, and then we'll get to the Q&A section, and we'll see what questions you guys have and how I can be of service there and how we can learn together. So I'll just put that up for fun and go to my email, and I'll wait for Amanda Jo to send me some information on that. So hopefully folks are doing well. Make sure you like the video, and hopefully you're subscribed, all those good things that help us build our community. And if you want to send me those questions here, Amanda Joe, I will get to those as soon as I can. Hopefully this was a decent live stream. Sorry we didn't have the audio for Johan. Not sure exactly what was going on there, but I thought in the interest of time, it made more sense to just continue with the flight rather than trial and error, troubleshooting the whole thing. So, all righty. Let's see. I don't have any questions yet, Amanda Joe, so I'll just wait on those, but I'll look at the live chat and see what's going on. Volcanologist that Shawn, hi Tim Pointing from Canada. The volcanologist that Shawn interviewed months ago was also recently talked about the eruption sequence ending at the end of summer, September-ish. Yeah, I think that was Professor Thordarson that mentioned that as well. So I think it's been more than just a few Icelandic scientists that have made that claim. So OT's Noro, who knew Shawn Willsey was actually a full-size human? Yeah, I am. Like, well, as full-size as I can be, right? All right, looks like the first question sheet is here. So let's take a stab at this. Oh, there's only a couple questions, so that's good. Okay, the first question is from, probably helps if you guys can see the question. So let me switch over again. There I am, full-size human. Hello. And then let me get you guys onto the question sheet. Okay, and then we'll make that a little bit bigger. From Tricky, what did the Earth look like during the early Hadean? If there was no water yet to form lava, did it perhaps look more crystalline like magma, or would that require higher pressures? Well, so the Hadean is Earth's first 600 million years. It's the earliest time period in Earth's history, from the Earth's inception at about 4.6 billion years to about 4 billion years. That's a time period we call the Hadean. Let's first recognize that the Hadean is a difficult period of time to provide a lot of detail because we do not have rocks from this time period. We do not have, obviously, there was little to no life on the planet at that time, so there's no fossils or no record of life. It's tricky. And so some of our best inferences and information about the Hadean is things that we derive from models or conditions or whatever data we can get. So what was Earth like during the early Hadean? It was very hot. The Earth was extremely hot. It was still cooling from the frictional heat that was created by collisions between these planetesimals that had actually formed the Earth. There was radioactive heat in the interior, and it was sometime during the end of the Hadean where maybe we started getting different types of crust developing, continental crust, ocean crust. Certainly by the Archean, the next time period, those things had happened. There wasn't a lot of water early on either. It was too hot, so the water actually vaporized. So your question here, so what was it like during the early Hadean and Hades, like hell on earth kind of? If there was no water yet to form lava, well, you don't need water to form lava. And the idea that sort of the perception we have about the Hadean Earth is that it was just an entirely lava ocean, like a big ocean of lava covered the outer surface of the Earth. And later, over time, that lava ocean started to cool and crystallize, started to cool at depth as well. And then that eventually formed some of the crustal layers. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of hard, concrete answers about the Hadean. Everything is just pretty much models and inferences based on the information that we have, which is pretty scant. 3D modeler from Rotterdam. Can you explain the difference between mantle plumes and kimberlite pipes? I'm no expert, so take it with a grain of salt. Mantle plumes are the more fundamental features. So those would be areas where we have anomalously high amounts of heat flowing up from deep within the earth through the Earth's mantle, usually manifesting themselves as as what we call hotspots, like we have in Hawaii or Iceland, where we have higher than average rates of volcanic eruptions of lava. So that would be a mantle plume. Kimberlite pipes are, I don't know if they're necessarily tied to mantle plumes. I don't know as much about them. So mantle plumes are the more generic, broader feature. Kimberlite pipes are more specifically a type of volcano, possibly fed by a mantle plume, but I don't know for sure, where you get very violent eruptions. I think water maybe plays a little bit of a role in those. And the reason they're studied so much and of such interest is that these are the geologic features that concentrate and transport diamonds close to the surface. And so kimberlite pipes, which was named after Kimberley, South Africa, where there's a lot of diamond mines there. And so the idea is that the magma is ascending at very rapid rates. Some people even model it might be supersonic rates. And if you can drag these diamonds from deep within the earth, which are just carbon, but they're high temperature, high pressure forms of carbon, if you can bring them up to the surface quickly, they'll stay in that state as a diamond, versus if you bring them up very slowly, that carbon would form a different crystal and a different mineral that's more stable at those lower temperatures and pressures. So yeah, that's about all I know off the top of my head. Otherwise I'd have to go dive into the literature. So are all mantle plumes also kimberlite pipes? I would say no. Are kimberlite pipes always associated with mantle plumes? That I don't know. I'd have to double check that. And maybe someone has chimed in on the chat and answered that better than I could. So High Kicker 11, is Iceland continental plate or just upbuilt oceanic plate? That's a great question. The way I understand it is the jury's a little bit out on that. There's some recent articles I've read. Do I even have one of those sitting here? I've got a couple articles I need to read. Not that one, not that one. Sorry, I just want to see if I have actually one of those papers. Here's a pile of papers I haven't read. Oh, no, those are different papers. Anyway, but there's one idea and there's some evidence that suggests that there's a small fragment of a continental plate that underlies part of Iceland, more like in the central part of the island in the country, where we get different types of magma or rocks, right? So most of Iceland, especially in the western part, the Reykjanes Peninsula, it's pretty much all basalt. It's very uniform for the most part. But as you get more into the highlands of Iceland and to the eastern side, the rock types change, and there are things like obsidian in Iceland, and there's rhyolite, and some eruptions produce pumice, and so there's clearly other types of magmas that are produced there. And so I would say it's mostly oceanic plate that's been built up, but there could be a little bit of continental plate there that has yet to be completely verified. And in terms of magma compositions, we know we have other magma types, presumably from what we call crystal fractionation of those basaltic magmas. Basically, if you start to cool them and allow some crystals to form, you're pulling out the crystals that are the lower temperature, more silica-rich type of material. So if you keep doing that iteratively over time, you can eventually create magma compositions that aren't just basaltic, but are more what we call evolved into, like, andesites or rhyolites. Jeffrey Porter, what is the correct term to be used when magma collects in the subsurface? We've heard it called everything from a pool, a pond, a sill, a lake, and a reservoir. What is the official term? Another fine question, Jeffrey. Yes, it's, I suppose, the most generic. And I think what I've been doing lately, I've probably used all those terms, so I'm just as guilty as anyone. And most recently, I think I've been using magma storage zone or maybe magma reservoir. Those are probably the ones I prefer. I think if you say sill, a magma sill implies a specific geometry. So if you say a sill, you are saying that the magma body is tabular, like a book, and is parallel to the layers that it intrudes. So it's like a shelf of magma, right? A thin lens of magma parallel to the layers that it intrudes. And if you're going to use a word like sill, you better have some evidence that suggests that it is a sill body in terms of its geometry. A magma lake, I've never used that one myself. I haven't heard that one as much. But pool, pond, and lake, I don't think I've ever used any of those, to be honest. A magma pond, a magma pool, magma lake. Now, once the magma gets to the surface and is lava, we have used the terms lava pond, perched lava pond. Within a crater, you might have a lava lake. So those are terms that we might use at the surface, but not in the subsurface. So what is the official term, which is your question? I don't know. I don't know what the official term would be, and I don't know who the regulating body would be that would, determine what the quote unquote official term is. And so there's a little bit of leeway there, I suppose. I think magma storage zone, to me, that's pretty good, because it just implies that it's magma at depth and it's some area in the subsurface that stores magma with a geometry and a architecture that we don't have a handle on. So maybe that's, but a magma chamber, that's the other one that you kind of hear. Magma chamber to me implies a bigger cohesive body of magma. And that's what probably we classically say under a volcano. But for this specific place in Iceland that we've been focusing on, I've tried to refrain from using that term, because I don't think it has, all the evidence suggests it doesn't have that kind of geometry, like a big, mushroom shaped blob of magma. So, yeah, good stuff. Okay, how are we looking? So that's it for the questions, unless I have another sheet of questions. Let me just double check the live chat and see if there's anything else I missed there. Yeah, magma chamber is pretty generic. Yeah, but I think whenever I draw a magma chamber, and hi, Greg in Tennessee, I always draw a blob. And I think moving forward, I'm going to be a little bit more careful about that, because I think we teach people, and there's a bias there that's what magma bodies look like. And I think in some instances they do look that way, especially underneath large, like stratovolcanoes or central volcanoes, like like a Mount Rainier or something. But this area in Iceland, it definitely doesn't look anything like that. So looks like sheet 2 is coming through. So let's do one more set of questions, and then we'll wind this down. So if you guys can see that okay. Let's see. Oh, I got to switch over to the other one. Question sheet 2. All right, from Harry De La Junta. And how are you, Harry? Hope you're doing well. He says, yes, in a stack of lava flows. Oh, yeah, in a stack of lava flows, is there a disconformity between the flows, or does the term disconformity only apply to sedimentary layers? I don't know what the official book would say, so we could look that up here in a second. In my mind, I would probably only use a disconformity with sedimentary layers. If I have a stack of lava flows and there's a clear gap in time, as you put it, or some erosional surface, I would just probably call it that you had, lava flow number 1, we have an erosional surface, and then we have lava flow number 2. And the implication there would be that there would be that erosional surface represents some period of time. I think disconformity should probably best be applied to sedimentary layers. I think that's what the literature would say too. So yeah, it's somewhat semantic, sticky stuff, I suppose. La Remere, when they're talking about it moving south, are they maybe looking at conduits seen via earthquakes versus where the fissures hit the surface? So that's going back to the question about the Met Office and that the vents or the volcanic vents moving to the south. I don't know. Obviously, the fractures and the number of cracks in the ground, we seem to discover more of them over time as they're moving around Grindavik. Of course, most of those formed in the November flurry of earthquakes that initiated this whole thing. I don't know, but and maybe I'll give a little bit of leeway because I was reading the Met Office update that was in Icelandic that had been Google translated to English, and so maybe there was a little bit lost in translation there. But the way it read to me with the translation was that there was a high probability, increased probability is what they said, of lava erupting in Grindavik based on the progression over time. So I don't know. I'm not saying that it won't. I don't think I would have made that statement given the data we have. But maybe it was a translation thing. From Law's Unicorn, are there any signs from Kilauea? Yeah, I've been watching Kilauea a little bit on and off. There was how big was the earthquake that happened about a week or so ago? Maybe it was like a 4. Kilauea is definitely inflating. Magma is continuing to accumulate beneath Kilauea. That means it will move towards something, just like in Iceland. What we saw, was it a month or so ago? We saw Kilauea have an intrusion. There was a whole bunch of earthquakes that indicated magma was moving in the subsurface. There was some thought that it would manifest itself as an eruption, but it didn't. And so that's very likely to be what we see moving forward. And I'll probably do another update here on Kilauea, maybe the next week or two, just maybe get folks up to date on what's been going on over the past few weeks there. So I don't check every day, but a couple times a week, I just kind of read the USGS update, look at some of the data, and just kind of keep myself apprised of what's going on there. Joe Garo, has it been quite some time since the last kimberlite eruption? Yeah, what I understand, and again, my knowledge is limited on this topic, is that most of the kimberlite eruptions took place like 3 to 4 billion years ago or something. They're very old, maybe 1 billion years ago at the youngest. And so we've never seen these types of eruptions. All we can do is look at the deposits, look at model the dynamics and how they erupt, and try to piece it together. It's detective work. No one's actually seen these types of eruptions, in person. So we don't have any direct observational data to go with them. It's just looking at the deposits and trying to piece it together. From Anna, would Shawn consider coming over to Europe to do some field trips here? Well, I'd love going to Europe. I plan on doing it some more. The trick with doing a field trip is you have to know the geology of the area pretty well. And I would say my other than Iceland, my knowledge of European geology is very limited, and definitely in its infancy. So until I get a little more, I guess, there's a couple places though, like I have been to Scotland, and I did do a lot of research before I went there with students. And so there's a few places where, I do feel like I could probably run a field trip. But like when I was in Germany, there wasn't a lot of knowledge I was taking into it. I can do random road cuts through Europe. So if people want to just, pull over and look at road cuts in Europe with me and just scratch their heads with me and try to figure it out, that would be great. But in terms of, a classic field trip where I'm quote unquote the expert and I'm teaching people, the geology of some area or some region, I'm not nearly ready to do that in Europe. I'm hoping to get over next year. I'd really like to get into the Alps and look at some of that geology. But in terms of doing field trips, I think we're not quite there yet. So, but do I have the ambition to? Yes. Do I have the knowledge to do it? Not yet. So, baby steps. So, okay. That's the last question I see. So let's see, going back to the live chat. Thanks for your questions, friends. hopefully that was helpful. And I think that's about all I have for today. So hopefully this went well. Kind of a hodgepodge mixture of our drone flights in North Iceland with NatureEye. We did some announcements. We did the Iceland update, and then we did some Q&A. So we did a little bit of everything here in about an hour 40. So hopefully that was helpful to you. Looking forward into my crystal ball. Things you can expect over the next couple weeks. I'm going to get another Geology 101 video done really soon. So look for that. I think what's the next one going to be on? I think to round out plate tectonics, I'd like to spend a little bit of time on hotspots and maybe accretion as a process. So probably do a short little episode on that. And then we'll turn to, from these plate tectonic episodes for 101, we'll get into igneous rocks and igneous processes, which I think will be very helpful for some of you that are interested in Iceland. I have the talk on Sunday, so if you're in the Boise area, hopefully I can see some of you there. If not, don't worry about it. I'll see if I can get it recorded. I'm around this weekend, but the following weekend, the last weekend in July, is we're doing a multi-day river trip on the Salmon River near Riggins. That's kind of our last hurrah for the summer, because then my wife has to get back to her elementary school in early August. I have an extra week, though, in August before I need to get back to school. And that's probably when I'll head down to Utah on my own, figure out the field trips. I'm going to probably head over to the Vernal area and get some more videos done around Dinosaur National Monument and some other places that I know pretty well. And so look for that. Other things coming down the pipe, the interview series. I have one more random road cut one to throw out there. I am also relaunching some of the old videos. I've gone through my catalog, and videos that came out a few years ago and just didn't get a lot of views, but I still think, I'm like, there's good stuff here. I think it just maybe like slipped through the cracks somehow. I'm relaunching those with the intros and the little Google Earth fly-throughs. And so hopefully those will be of interest to folks. So lots to look at still, lots to review. And let's see, anything else that I can think of? Oh, here's a weird request. I didn't want to go here, but if you're still with me, let's see how this lands. So as some of you know, and maybe this might be more the North America-based viewers more than the international folks. I wrote a few years ago 2 books, Geology Underfoot in Southern Idaho. I don't know why everything's backwards on that screen. It's weird. And another one, Roadside Geology of Idaho. This past year, I don't want to make this sound weird, but whatever. I was nominated for an award for public outreach and bringing geology to the public, basically. And that award is partly, it's actually kind of a writing-based award, but they've also given it to people who've done things that were outside of writing. So some of you might know Nick Zentner. He won it a few years ago. I think it's called, I'm trying to remember what the award is called now. Let me see if I can find it really quick. I think it's the Jim Shea Award, something like that. Yeah, this is it. For an individual for exceptional contributions in the form of writing and or editing of earth science materials. Oh, look, you guys can't see this. Let me just put this up real quick. Yeah, so basically writing or editing earth science materials broadly construed that are of interest to the general public and or teachers of earth science. Anyway, so I got nominated. Actually, I got nominated the last 2 years and I didn't win it. And this year, one of the things that was sent to me in the way of feedback was we had lots of people saying great things about your YouTube stuff, but we needed to see more letters and endorsements of your writing skills and the writing products that you put together. So I guess what I'm asking in sort of a roundabout way is if you have read my books or use these books or are a fan of some of the books I've written or any other the writing things I've done. So not so much the YouTube stuff. I guess I need some people that would be interested in writing me a letter of recommendation that supports. You could probably write a few sentences about the YouTube stuff, but mainly supporting my contribution to bringing geology to the public through books and articles and other things I've done in the form of writing. That would maybe help. So I don't want to it would be nice to get an award. Everyone loves to be recognized for their work. It's not something I'm chasing per se, but they did make that note to me and that, hey, if you had a little bit more, if you had a little bit more, a few letters or support in the way of your writing, because it is a bit of a writing award, even though they haven't always given it to people who have had a strong writing component. Anyway, so what I'll do, if you're interested in that, I don't want to make it weird or anything like that, but if you're motivated to and you feel like you can speak clearly and effectively to my writing works, I'll put the link to this award and how you can make send a letter of recommendation, if you will. I'll put that in the video description to this once we get done with the live stream here. So I don't know, that was it. Kind of a weird thing. So yeah, so good stuff. Anything else? I think that's about it. So thank you all for being here today. Thanks especially to Amanda, Joe, and Susan for the moderating and for going through the live stream. I always like to read through the live streams a little bit after the videos get posted and uploaded. I'll go through and add the chapters to it as well. Let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to check out the website and give us any feedback that you might have there. We will probably do another live stream maybe next week, but definitely within the next couple weeks, try to do something else. And of course, we'll be watching things in Iceland along with Hawaii as well, just seeing what's going on there. And so look for regular updates from me as well on that front. So yeah, I think that's all I have. Yeah, there is supposed to be a setting. I'm not in OBS right now. I'm in Restream because NatureEye likes me to use Restream for all their stuff. How can you flip things around? Video. Oh, here we go. Huh. All right, let's see if this works now. Is it more clear now? Is it reading it right side up? Yep. Okay, well, now I know you have to go to this little setting thing and there's a mirror view. So now my office looks the way it's supposed to. My shirt reads the correct way. The books read the correct way again. All good stuff. Well, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you. Appreciate our community of learners. I'm just honored and thrilled to be a part of this and so glad that you guys found me on YouTube. I do what I think feels right in terms of videos and content, but I always do listen to people and they're the recommendations. And I hope I've improved and gotten better at this over time through your feedback, through your recommendations and tips and such. So anyway, we'll go ahead and shut down. And if you guys have anything, you can get a hold of me through the website. Those emails go through Amanda Jo, but then she will send those to me if there's things she can't answer. Oh, let me check her. She's texted me a bunch of stuff that I didn't see right off the bat. For the November trips, is it one trip lasting 2 days or two? So all the field trips are 1 day field trips. So like the 1 day is at Craters of the Moon. So you can pick and choose the days you come, or you can come for the whole package of field trip dates if you want to, whatever works best. So yeah, so for example, and then we'll shut this down, sorry. So I don't know which day will be which yet for these Salt Lake ones, but let's say October 11th might be the day we go to Craters of the Moon, right? And then maybe October 12th is the City of Rocks Day. And then October 13th is this other location. So Yeah, so it's not a package deal. You can pick and choose. If 1 day or 2 days work for you, but not the whole gamut, that's fine. So that's an option. Link for sending in for the award. Yeah, I'll put that up, Amanda Joe. I don't think my books are available on Kindle. You can buy them directly from me. They're also on Amazon. And you could always get them through the publisher, which is Mountain Press Publishing. So this is the, let me switch over one more time, sorry, and show you, this is the publishing company that makes all of these books. So you can come in here and go to series, and you could go to roadside geology, and there's our Idaho one. Or you could come in here to, or you could look for authors. You could look for me under authors. You go to geology underfoot, and there's mine right there. So anyway, so there's a couple different ways to get those, but those are good ones. So I'll get all these links uploaded here in a second. Thanks again for everyone for joining us. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, as the case may be. Thank you again for your support, for being here, and we'll see you next time. Take care, and so long.